I came back unannounced to surprise them for Christmas. The flight from Denver landed early, fog thick over the tarmac like a burial shroud. I'd told Ben and Vivian I wouldn't make it this year. Something about the job site in Colorado needing supervision through the holidays. A lie, but a useful one. At 73, I've learned that truth is a weapon best kept holstered until the moment demands it. Sometimes the best strategy is letting people think you're far away, busy, uninvolved. Let them relax. Let them get sloppy. Let them believe they're safe. The cab dropped me 2 blocks from the house. Old habit. In construction, you learn to scout a site before walking in. Check the terrain, identify potential problems, plan your approach. 40 years of managing job sites teaches you things that apply to more than just building. It teaches you how to read people, how to anticipate trouble, how to protect yourself when everyone around you is looking for an opening. The neighborhood looked the same. Manicured lawns dusted with fresh snow, inflatable Santas sagging in front yards, strings of lights choking every gutter and door frame. American excess dressed up as Christmas spirit. The Hendersons had added a projection system that threw snowflakes onto their garage door. The Williamses had some kind of musical light display that probably violated noise ordinances. Mrs. Chen next door had wrapped every tree in her yard with white lights, making the place look like a winter wonderland catalog. My house stood at the end of Maple Drive, dignified and restrained by comparison. Marilyn's house, really. She'd picked it 30 years ago, pregnant with Ben, her hand resting protectively on her belly as she walked through empty rooms and imagined our future. I could still see her standing in the living room, sunlight streaming through bare windows saying, "This is it, Jack. This is where we'll raise our family. This is where we'll grow old together." The future we got wasn't the one she imagined, but that's true for everyone who lives long enough to see their dreams collide with reality. We raised Ben here, watched him take his first steps in that living room, celebrated his birthdays, his graduations, his wedding, built a life inside these walls. And now that life was being dismantled by the very person we'd built it for, I approached from the side yard, boots crunching through week-old snow that had frozen into a hard crust. Each step sounded too loud in the winter silence. The Christmas tree blazed in the bay window, Marilyn's old ornaments, the ones she'd collected over 40 years of marriage. Glass angels from our first Christmas together, when we were young and poor and stupid with love. Wooden stars Ben had made in elementary school, his name carved carefully into the back of each one. The delicate snowflake I'd bought her in Prague during that business trip in 1995. The one she'd unwrapped with tears in her eyes because I'd remembered she collected them. Ben knew I wanted those stored away this first Christmas without her. We'd discussed it at the funeral, his hand on my shoulder, his voice thick with what I'd thought was genuine grief. He'd promised to respect my wishes, said he understood how hard this first holiday would be. He'd agreed, said he understood. He'd hung them anyway. That should have been my first clue, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The balcony door was unlocked, sloppy. I'd installed that lock myself 20 years ago, taught Ben how to check it every night before bed when he was 12 years old, and terrified someone might break in after watching some crime show. Security starts with basics, I'd told him, showing him how to test the mechanism, how to make sure it caught properly. Good locks, good habits, good awareness, that's what keeps you safe. Now it hung loose, mechanism worn from years of use and lack of maintenance, an invitation to anyone walking by with bad intentions. Inside, I could hear voices, laughter, the clink of glasses, Christmas music playing softly, some jazz rendition of Silent Night that Marilyn would have hated. She'd always preferred the traditional versions, the ones we'd listened to when Ben was a child, when Christmas meant something other than champagne and celebration over stolen inheritance. I stayed in the shadows of the balcony, just beyond the reach of the porch light, my breath misting in the December air. The temperature had dropped to maybe 15 degrees, cold enough that my fingers started going numb after a minute. I flexed them, working circulation back, and watched my family through the window like some ghost from Christmas past. Marilyn would have stood here. I could picture her exactly, her thin frame wrapped in that blue cardigan she'd lived in during her last months, the one that hung off her shoulders as the cancer ate her away from the inside. Her breath would have misted just like mine. Her hands would have been cold just like mine, and she would have watched these same people dividing up her life while she was still clinging to it. She had passed away 3 months ago. Pancreatic cancer, 6 weeks from diagnosis to funeral. Not enough time to say goodbye, barely enough time to understand what was happening, just enough time to watch her body betray her, while her mind stayed sharp and clear and horrifyingly aware. But maybe enough time to see things clearly, to notice things she might have missed when she was healthy, to make arrangements, to leave me the tools I'd need to fight back. Through the window, I watched my son. Ben sat in my chair, my leather recliner, the one I'd bought the year he was born, broken in over 3 decades of reading newspapers and watching football games. The leather had molded to my body, developed the particular wear pattern of a frequently used piece of furniture, the indentations where I'd sat thousands of times. Now Ben occupied it like it was his throne, legs stretched out, head tilted back, completely comfortable in my space, taking what was mine. Again. He'd always been a handsome kid. Sharp jaw inherited from Marilyn's father, good thick hair that hadn't thinned like mine, the kind of smile that made strangers trust him instantly. That smile had served him well in business, made him vice president of Harris Construction at 32, made clients overlook his occasional lapses in judgment, made investors believe in projects when the numbers didn't quite add up, made his father ignore warning signs that should have been obvious to anyone paying attention. I'd been paying attention to the wrong things, focused on the business, on keeping the company running, on building something that would outlast me. Never thought to watch my own son. Never thought I'd need to. Vivian perched on the arm of the chair, her hand possessive on Ben's shoulder, fingers moving in small circles that spoke of ownership rather than affection. My daughter-in-law, 33 years old, blonde, beautiful in that calculated way that requires 3 hours of daily preparation and $1,000 per month in cosmetics and salon visits. I'd seen the credit card bills when she and Ben first married, back when I was still helping them financially, back when I thought I was investing in my son's happiness rather than funding my own destruction. She'd married Ben 5 years ago in a wedding that cost more than my first house. 200 guests, sit-down dinner with 3 courses, open bar that served top-shelf liquor until 2 in the morning, string quartet for the ceremony, and a full band for the reception, and a dress that had to be custom-made in New York because nothing off the rack was good enough for Vivian Foster. Marilyn had smiled through the ceremony, played the role of gracious mother-in-law, made all the right sounds about how beautiful everything was. She'd complimented the flowers, praised the venue, told Vivian she looked stunning. But that night in bed, in the darkness of our room, she'd whispered, "That girl doesn't love him, Jack. Watch her. She's marrying the business, not the man. She's marrying the future, not the present." I should have listened. Marilyn's instincts about people were always better than mine. She could see through facades, detect lies, read the truth in body language and tone of voice. Me? I built things. I understood concrete and steel, load-bearing walls and foundation work. People were trickier. Vivian's parents occupied the couch, Gerald and Patricia Foster, both lawyers, both radiating that particular smugness that comes from never having built anything with their own hands. Gerald was a partner at Foster, Chen and Associates, one of those mid-sized firms that handled estate planning and corporate law for wealthy clients who wanted to minimize their taxes and maximize their inheritance. He'd made a career out of helping people protect their money, hide their assets, and screw over anyone who got in their way. Patricia had her own practice focusing on family law, which probably explained where Vivian had learned to manipulate relationship dynamics so effectively. She specialized in high-net-worth divorces, the kind where couples fought over summer homes and investment portfolios rather than custody and child support. She knew every trick, every loophole, every way to extract maximum value from a failed marriage. They toasted with champagne flutes, the expensive kind with the long stems and delicate glass that cost $40 each, celebrating something. I counted 4 empty bottles on the coffee table. Dom Perignon, $200 per bottle. They were spending money, my money probably, like they'd already inherited it, like I was already gone, buried and forgotten. No one looked toward the balcony. No one noticed the father and husband standing in the cold, watching his family divide his life into manageable pieces. They were too busy enjoying themselves, too comfortable in their assumption of privacy, too certain that Jack Harris was safely in Colorado, managing a job site that didn't actually need managing. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? I allowed myself to feel it for just 30 seconds. The sorrow, the anger, the deep sense of betrayal that comes from realizing someone from your own family believes you're worth more gone than present. I'd given Ben everything. The best education money could buy, every opportunity I could create, a position in a company I'd built from nothing. Taught him the business from the ground up. Brought him to job sites when he was 10 years old, let him wear a hard hat and feel important. Paid for his college, his master's degree, his wedding, his house. And this was the return on that investment. 30 seconds. Then I locked it away. Emotion is useful, but only in controlled doses. Right now, I needed to be cold, calculated, strategic. Marilyn had warned me. Her final words, whispered through a haze of medication in a hospital room, heavy with the scent of antiseptic and fading life. The papers, Jack. Check the papers. In the red folder, top shelf of my closet. They're waiting for you to be gone. Don't let them win. Promise me you won't let them win. I had checked, and what I discovered chilled me to the core. The sun rose at 6:47 a.m. I knew because I watched it from the balcony, watched the sky turn from black to gray to that particular shade of winter blue that Marilyn had always loved. Morning blue, she'd called it. The color of possibility, the color of new beginnings. Inside, the house had gone quiet around 2 a.m. Ben and Vivian had climbed the stairs together, their footsteps heavy with champagne and satisfaction. The Fosters had followed shortly after, their door closing with a soft click that echoed through the silent house. They'd made themselves comfortable, made themselves at home, in my home. Sleeping in my beds, eating my food, drinking my wine, spending my money, planning my funeral while I was still alive to hear them. I waited until 7 o'clock exactly. Punctuality matters, precision matters. If you're going to make a point, make it at the exact right moment. Too early, and you lose the element of surprise. Too late, and you lose the psychological advantage. 7 o'clock was perfect. Early enough that they'd be disoriented, late enough that they'd all be awake. Then I went to work. The locksmith had handed me new keys 3 days earlier, giving me a knowing look that said he'd witnessed this kind of story before. Families fighting over property, children impatient for their inheritance, parents forced to guard themselves from their own relatives. He was a good guy. Mike Rodriguez ran a shop on 5th Street, had installed locks in half the buildings I'd constructed over the years. I'd paid cash, tipped well, told him I'd call if I needed anything else. He'd pressed a business card into my hand and said, "Whatever you're dealing with, Mr. Harris, I hope it works out. But if it doesn't, you call me. Day or night. Some battles you shouldn't fight alone." The front door lock turned smooth and quiet. I'd oiled it myself last summer, teaching Ben the proper maintenance schedule for a house this size. He'd nodded along, pretending to pay attention, taking notes on his phone that he'd never look at again. Probably already planning how to divide the equity with Vivian's father. Probably already calculating what this house would sell for, how much he'd clear after taxes and real estate fees. I changed the lock in 4 minutes flat. Muscle memory from 40 years in construction. Your hands remember things your mind forgets. The back door took 3 minutes. The side entrance, the one leading from the garage, took 5 because the frame had warped slightly over the winter and needed adjustment. I pulled out my pocket knife, shaved down the wood where it stuck, tested the fit. Perfect. Everything I built lasted. Everything I touched improved. By 7:15, every entrance to my house had new locks. By 7:20, I'd located the main electrical panel in the basement and thrown the main breaker. The panel was old. I'd installed it myself in 1989 when we'd renovated the basement, but it still worked perfectly. Everything I built lasted. The house went dark. The steady hum of the refrigerator fell silent. The furnace clicked off with a wheeze. Upstairs, someone swore. Ben's voice, confused and irritated, the tone of a man who'd never had to deal with real problems. Footsteps thundered overhead. Ben's heavy stride, Vivian's lighter step. I heard Gerald Foster's voice raised in confusion, Patricia's sharp response demanding to know what was happening. I walked to the kitchen, found the coffee maker by touch, and started a pot. No electricity required. I'd bought a French press years ago for camping trips. The smell of coffee filled the dark kitchen as footsteps clattered down the stairs. Rich, strong, the smell of normalcy in a situation that was anything but normal. The smell of control. Ben hit the hallway first. I heard him fumble for the light switch, curse when nothing happened. He called out, "Vivian, I think the power's out." "Obviously," she snapped. Her voice carried that edge it got when things didn't go according to plan. I'd heard it before, when restaurants got their reservation wrong, when stores didn't have her size in stock, when the valet took too long bringing her car around, when reality dared to inconvenience her carefully managed life. "Check the breaker box. It's in the basement." "Then go to the basement, Ben." The tone said she was done discussing it. The tone said he should know better than to bother her with minor problems. The tone said he was failing at his most basic husbandly duties. I sipped my coffee and waited. The kitchen was getting cold already without the furnace running. Good. Let them feel uncomfortable. Let them understand that comfort is a privilege, not a right. Let them know what it feels like when the world doesn't bend to accommodate them. The basement door creaked open. Ben's phone flashlight bounced down the stairs, throwing shadows on the walls. I counted his steps, 13 to the bottom, 4 more to the breaker box. A pause. I could imagine him standing there, staring at the panel, trying to understand what he was seeing. Then his voice, confused and uncertain. "That's weird." "What?" Vivian called from upstairs, impatience bleeding through every syllable. "The main breaker's off." "So turn it on." Like he was an idiot. Like it was the simplest thing in the world. Another pause. Longer this time. I could almost hear him processing, trying to understand, his brain working through the possibilities and finding nothing that made sense. When Ben spoke again, his voice had changed. Lost that comfortable certainty he'd carried the night before. Gained something that sounded almost like fear. "Vivian, the breaker box is padlocked." Silence. Heavy and pregnant with implication. I took another sip of coffee. French press. Simple. Effective. Like all the best solutions. No electricity needed. No complex machinery. Just hot water and time and coffee grounds. Marilyn had taught me that. "Complicated doesn't mean better, Jack," she'd say. "Sometimes simple is exactly what you need. Sometimes the old ways work best." Ben's footsteps pounded back up the stairs. I heard urgent whispers, voices rising and falling, then all 4 of them appeared in the kitchen doorway, backlit by the gray morning light filtering through windows. They froze when they saw me sitting at the table, coffee steaming, watching them with the patience of a man who's been up all night planning this exact moment. "Hey, Dad," Ben said, recovery quick, smile automatic and completely false. The same smile he used with difficult clients, with angry subcontractors, with anyone who might cause him problems. "We didn't know you were coming. Merry Christmas. What a great surprise." I didn't smile back, just sat there, letting the silence stretch, letting them feel the weight of their situation. Silence is a tool. Most people rush to fill it, say things they shouldn't, reveal truths they meant to hide. If you wait long enough, they tell you everything. "The locks are changed," I said finally. "All of them. The power stays off until I decide otherwise. This is my house, my name on the deed, my decision who stays and who goes." Vivian opened her mouth, that pretty face arranging itself into an expression of wounded innocence. The look she probably practiced in mirrors, the one that made men want to protect her and women want to trust her. I held up one finger. "Not yet, sweetheart. When I want to hear from you, I'll let you know." Gerald Foster stepped forward, chest puffed, lawyer mode engaged, ready to negotiate or threaten or whatever strategy he'd planned for situations like this. "Now see here, Mr. Harris. I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is completely unacceptable. You can't just sit down." Something in my voice made him stop. Maybe the 40 years I'd spent running construction sites, managing men who outweighed me by 50 pounds and thought disputes were best settled with fists. Maybe the decades of dealing with union bosses and mob-connected suppliers and contractors who thought they could intimidate the old man. You learn a certain tone, a certain look, the voice that says, "I'm not asking, I'm telling, and if you're smart, you'll listen." Gerald sat down. I placed my coffee cup on the table. The sound echoed through the powerless house, sharp, final. "Marilyn left me something," I said, "before she passed, while you were all visiting her in the hospital, holding her hand, telling her how much you loved her. While she was lying there dying, barely able to speak, pumped full of morphine but still sharp enough to see what was happening. She left me a folder. Red. About yay thick. I held my fingers 2 inches apart. Inside that folder were documents, legal documents, financial documents, emails printed out and highlighted in yellow marker. She'd been busy in those last weeks, busy and thorough. You know how she was." Ben's face had gone pale. Even in the dim morning light, I could see the color draining away, replaced by the gray certainty of being caught. The look of a man who's been playing a game and just realized the other player knew the rules better than he did. Vivian's hand tightened on his shoulder, nails digging in through his shirt hard enough to leave marks. "Jack, I think you're confused. The medication, the stress, the grief. It's understandable that you might—" "I'm not confused. I see things clearly, clearer than I have in years." I leaned forward, met her gaze, and saw her flinch. She left me a note too. Just one line. But it was enough. "They're waiting for you to be gone, Jack. Don't let them win." I stood up. 73 years old, but I keep myself in shape. You don't build a construction company from nothing by sitting behind a desk. I walk 5 miles every morning, lift weights 3 times a week, eat right, take care of the machine. My shadow stretched long in the gray morning light, making me look taller, more imposing, more dangerous than a 73-year-old man should look. So here's what's going to happen. You're all going to leave my house, right now, through the front door. I've called a cab. It'll be here in 10 minutes. You'll take what you brought with you, nothing more. No family heirlooms, no Christmas presents, no leftovers from the refrigerator, just your clothes and your phones and your guilty consciences, and then we're going to have a conversation about ownership, inheritance, and what happens to people who try to steal from family. "Dad!" Ben started, voice cracking like he was 16 again and asking for forgiveness after breaking curfew or crashing the car or some other teenage stupidity that seemed important at the time. "Tick-tock," I said, looking at my watch. The same watch Marilyn had given me for our 25th anniversary, the one engraved on the back with "Time well spent." 9 minutes now, better start packing. They left, but not quietly, not gracefully, not with dignity or grace or any acknowledgement of what they'd tried to do. Vivian tried to argue, threatened to call the police, played the victim card with tears that looked almost real. She was good. I had to give her that. The trembling voice, the wounded expression, the way she touched Ben's arm for support while simultaneously pushing him forward to argue on her behalf. If I hadn't seen Marilyn's folder, if I didn't know what they'd planned, I might have almost believed the performance. Might have thought I was the crazy one, the unreasonable one, the one who needed help. Gerald quoted some statute about elder abuse, about illegal evictions, about his rights as a guest in this house. He pulled out his phone, probably planning to record everything, to build some kind of case. Patricia joined in, her voice sharp with legal precision, talking about precedent and property law and how I was making a serious mistake that would have consequences, threatening me in my own house with my own coffee getting cold on my own table. I just sat there and waited. Let them exhaust themselves. Let them realize that nothing they said was going to change the situation. Let them understand that all their words, all their threats, all their legal knowledge meant exactly nothing when they were standing in my house with my locks on my doors. When Gerald's phone came up, I suggested he might want to think carefully about what happens to lawyers who suborn fraud, about how the State Bar Association tends to view attorneys who help their children steal from elderly parents, about how quickly a career can end when ethics complaints start piling up, about how hard it is to find work when you've been disbarred and your reputation is destroyed and everyone in the legal community knows exactly what you tried to do. He put the phone away. The cab pulled up at 7:47. I watched from the window as they loaded their luggage, as Vivian cast one last poisonous look at the house, her face twisted with rage and calculation. She was already planning her next move. I could see it in her eyes. Already figuring out how to spin this, how to use it, how to turn my defense into her weapon. But she'd underestimated me. They all had. Thought I was just some old man who'd be easy to manipulate, easy to control, easy to put away. Ben stood on the sidewalk looking lost and young and scared. For a moment, just a moment, he looked like the boy I'd raised. The kid who'd come to me crying after his first girlfriend broke his heart, who'd been terrified he wouldn't get into college, who'd asked my permission before proposing to Vivian with tears in his eyes, saying he hoped he could be half the husband I'd been. That boy was in there somewhere, buried under layers of greed and weakness and his wife's manipulation. Then he climbed into the cab, and the moment passed. When the cab disappeared around the corner, I poured myself another cup of coffee and opened Marilyn's red folder for the third time. I'd memorized every page, could recite the contents from memory, but it helped to see her handwriting in the margins, her notes and observations, the careful way she documented their betrayal. Her script was shaky in places. The cancer had already started affecting her motor control by then, but her mind had been clear, sharp, focused on protecting me the only way she still could. Power of attorney drafted, she'd written next to one email. Check witness signatures, might be fraudulent. Dr. Kellerman, paid evaluator, rubber stamps anything, next to another. Nursing home deposit, $15,000, from our joint account without permission, next to a bank statement. They talk about me as if I'm already gone, placed beside a text message thread. Ben asked about life insurance policy. Didn't even pretend to care how I was feeling, next to another. Page after page, document after document. My wife, in her final days, using the last of her strength not to battle the illness consuming her, but to stand against the son who was betraying us both. My wife had been fading, and our son had been arranging my funeral, preparing to take everything while I was still alive, just trapped, powerless, and kept subdued by medication. Time to teach him what that cost. It was time to show him that Jack Harris wasn't some feeble old man who'd just give up when told to. Time for war. Henry Brooks arrived at 9:30 with bagels and the morning paper. I texted him at 7, just 3 words. Time to move. He'd understood immediately. 40 years in business together teaches you a certain shorthand. A language built on trust and shared history and knowing exactly what the other person means without unnecessary explanation. We'd started Harris Construction with nothing but ambition and a handshake deal, built it into something that mattered, something that lasted. "Coffee?" I asked as he settled into the kitchen chair, his coat still dusted with snow from the walk from his car. He stomped his feet on the mat, brushed off his shoulders, looked around the dark house with knowing eyes. "Already had 3 cups. Ruth says I'm going to vibrate through the floor." He pulled a bagel from the bag, tore it in half with practiced ease. The sound was loud in the powerless house. "So? They tried it?" "Last night. Celebrating. Champagne in my living room, Gerald Foster running through the assets like he'd already filed probate, 4 bottles of Dom Perignon, $800 worth of champagne they thought I wouldn't notice missing from the wine cellar." I slid a copy of the emails across the table. They had it all planned out. Timeline, execution, division of assets. Very thorough, very professional. Almost admirable if it wasn't so completely evil. Henry chewed thoughtfully, reading as he ate. He'd aged well, still had most of his hair, kept the weight off, moved like a man 20 years younger. We'd founded Harris Construction together in 1978. Him handling the money, me handling the builds. He'd retired 5 years ago, sold me his share for exactly what it was worth, stayed on as an advisor because friendship matters more than stock options. Because some relationships transcend business. Because 40 years of working side by side creates bonds that don't break just because someone signs retirement papers. "Marilyn knew?" he asked finally, looking up from the papers with something like grief in his eyes. He'd loved her too, in his own way. Not romantically. Henry had always been faithful to Ruth, but with the deep affection that comes from decades of friendship. She'd been there when his daughter got married, when his father passed away, and when the business nearly collapsed in 92, when we all worked 100-hour weeks to keep it alive. 3 months before diagnosis, noticed Ben asking too many questions about the company structure, about my will, about whether I'd considered succession planning. Casual questions over dinner, random observations during site visits, the kind of thing that seems innocent until you add them all up. I pulled out more documents from the folder. She started keeping records, emails mostly. Ben and Vivian discussing how to manage the transition. That's what they called it. Transition. Like I was a problem to be solved rather than a person. As if I were already gone and they were simply handling the formalities. "What's the actual plan?" Henry set down his bagel, giving me his full attention. The joking tone was gone now, replaced by the sharp focus that had made him such a good business partner. The ability to shift from casual to serious in a heartbeat, to see the core of a problem and start working on solutions. Power of attorney. They've got papers drafted, witnessed, ready to file, some doctor in Vivian's pocket ready to sign off on diminished capacity. Once that's in place, they move me into a nursing home, already picked it out, already put down a deposit $15,000 from our joint account, and liquidate the assets. House, company, retirement accounts. Everything. They've got it all mapped out like a military operation. Henry's jaw tightened, muscles working beneath his skin. The company? They're going after the company? Our company? Ben's listed as successor in the operating agreement. Once I'm declared incompetent, he takes control. Vivian's father has a buyer lined up. Some development group out of Chicago. Meridian Development. They've agreed to terms. $17 million for a company worth $25, but they're splitting the difference under the table. Gerald gets a consulting fee. Vivian gets a marketing position. Ben gets to keep his VP title for 6 months before they fire him with a severance package. It's all documented. Jesus Christ. Henry pushed back from the table, stood up, paced to the window. His reflection looked old in the glass, tired and angry. We built that company. 40 years, Jack. Started with nothing. Remember that first job? The Peterson garage? We barely broke even. Worked 18-hour days in the summer heat just to prove we could do it. I remember. How could I forget? Two young men with more drive than wisdom, undercutting everyone just to gain experience. Pushing ourselves to the edge to finish on time and under budget. Marilyn had brought us lunch every day that summer, pregnant and patient, and believing in us when no one else did. Sitting in whatever shade she could find, fanning herself with a magazine, telling us we were going to make it even when we weren't sure ourselves. And Ben wants to sell it. Henry turned back to me, his face hard. For $17 million. To line his pockets and buy his wife another handbag. To throw away everything we built. That's about right. I took a sip of my coffee. Cold now, but still strong. He doesn't even have the decency to wait until I'm actually gone. Just wants to lock me away and pretend I'm already gone. We sat in silence for a minute, both of us processing. Outside, the neighborhood was coming to life. Snowplows grinding past, kids building snowmen, dogs barking, normal people living normal lives, unaware that in this house, a war was being planned. "What do you need?" Henry asked finally, coming back to the table, his expression set and determined. This was the Henry I remembered from the early days. The Henry who'd helped me deal with mob-connected suppliers when they tried to shake us down. The Henry who'd stood beside me when union bosses threatened to shut down our sites. The Henry who didn't back down from fights that needed fighting. Information first. I need to know exactly what they've done, who they've talked to, what commitments they've made. Then I need to know their weakness. Everyone has one. Something they're afraid of losing more than they want to gain. Find that, and you can control them. And then? Then I take it all back. The house, the company, the future. Everything they thought they were going to steal. And I make sure they understand exactly what they tried to do. Make sure they feel it in their bones. Make sure they never forget what it costs to betray family. Henry didn't hesitate. They tried to steal from you. They planned to lock you away and profit from it. You think I'm going to object to you fighting back? He shook his head. Do what you need to do. I'm with you. All the way. Whatever it takes. It might get ugly. Good. They deserve ugly. They deserve worse than ugly. They deserve to lose everything and understand exactly why it's happening. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through contacts. I've got a guy. Private investigator. David Fisher. Retired FBI. Very thorough, very discreet. Name's David Fisher. He can have preliminary reports by tomorrow. Charges $5,000 a day, but he's worth every penny. Gets information other people can't get. Has contacts everywhere. Police, courts, banks, you name it. Tell him to look at Vivian first. Ben's weak. Always has been. Needs approval, needs validation, needs someone to tell him he's doing the right thing. But Vivian's the planner. This whole thing has her fingerprints all over it. Ben might have signed the papers, but she's the one who drew them up. What about the power of attorney? If they file it before we're ready. I've already spoken to Tom Anderson. My lawyer, 30 years of good work, sharp as they come. Built like a linebacker, mind like a steel trap. He's preparing counter-documentation, medical evaluations from 3 independent doctors, all confirming I'm exactly as competent as I was at 50. Financial records showing I'm actively managing multiple projects, plus some insurance policies. What kind? The kind that make filing fraudulent legal documents a felony. The kind that mention wire fraud when discussing interstate transfer of assets obtained through false pretenses. Tom says if they file anything, we can have them arrested within 48 hours, but I don't want them arrested yet. I want them to feel it first, to watch everything they planned fall apart, to understand what they tried to do. Henry whistled low. You're not playing around. Neither were they when they planned my obituary. I pulled out another sheet, showed him. Ben's handwriting, draft after draft, trying to find the right words to eulogize a father he was actively betraying. Look at the date. He read it, his expression hardening. This is dated 2 weeks before Marilyn passed. They were already arranging your funeral while she was still alive, still fighting. Unbelievable. They were impatient, couldn't wait for nature to take its course, had to accelerate the timeline. Henry left at noon, promising reports by tomorrow evening. I spent the afternoon systematically securing every asset I could reach. Each phone call was a small victory, another wall built between Ben and what he thought he was going to inherit. First, the bank. Margaret Chen answered, her voice cheerful and professional. We'd done business for 20 years. I'd built her house in 2003, given her a good price because she'd helped us through a rough patch with a construction loan when other banks wouldn't touch us. Jack, how are you holding up? I heard about Marilyn. I'm so sorry. She was such a lovely woman. I'm managing, Margaret, but I need to secure my accounts, add flags, require in-person verification for any withdrawals over $500, block any attempts to add signatories or change beneficiaries. I need everything locked down tight. Her tone shifted immediately, professional warmth replaced by professional concern. Is everything okay? This sounds serious. Family issues, the kind you read about in the paper. I need to make sure no one can access my money without me physically being there to approve it. No phone calls, no emails, no power of attorney. Nothing moves without me standing in your office with my ID. I understand. I'll set it up today. And Jack? I'm sorry you're dealing with this. Family is supposed to be the people you trust most. Yeah, supposed to be. Second, the company. Rita answered on the first ring. Our office manager, loyal for 20 years. She'd started as a receptionist fresh out of high school, worked her way up to managing everything. She knew the business as well as I did, maybe better in some ways. Mr. Harris, we weren't expecting to hear from you today. Is everything okay? Rita, I need you to lock down all decision-making authority, effective immediately. No one but me approves contracts, payments, or personnel changes. If anyone, and I mean anyone, including Ben, tries to make executive decisions, you come to me first. Don't let them bully you. Don't let them pressure you. Don't let them tell you it's urgent. Everything goes through me personally. Silence. Then, carefully. I've been hearing rumors, Mr. Harris. Ben's been around more lately, asking questions about vendor contracts, client relationships, financial projections, acting like he's preparing to take over. He wanted copies of our client list last week, told me it was for a presentation he was preparing. I told him I'd need your approval first. He wasn't happy about it. Good instincts. What else? He's been meeting with the senior project managers, taking them to lunch, asking about their plans for the future, feeling them out about their loyalty. I think he's trying to figure out who'd support him if there was some kind of transition, who'd stay and who'd leave. From now on, document everything. Every interaction you have with Ben. Save every email, record every phone call if you can do it legally. Take notes on every conversation, date, time, what was said, who else was present. I need a paper trail that shows exactly what he's been trying to do. You think he's trying something? I know he's trying something, and I need your help to stop it. You've got it. Whatever you need, Mr. Harris. You've always been fair with me, always treated me right. I'm not going to let anyone take this company away from you. Third, the accountant. Jerome Levinson had handled Harris Construction's book since 1985, watched the company grow from a 2-person operation to a multi-million-dollar business. He'd helped us navigate 3 recessions, countless tax changes, and more audits than I cared to remember. Jack, Jerome said carefully when I explained what I needed. Are you sure about this? These are serious accusations. If you're wrong about Ben, if this is all some misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding, Jerome. I have documentation, emails, bank statements, legal papers. This isn't paranoia or grief or confusion. This is my son actively planning to steal from me. I see. A long pause. You've got kids, Jerome? 3. All grown now, right? Successful careers, good families? Yes. You ever think about what they'd do if you were gone tomorrow? Would they grieve for you or celebrate their inheritance? Would they miss you, or just the money? Silence. Heavy and uncomfortable. Then, I'll lock down the accounts, Jack. Dual authorization for anything over 10,000. Full audit trail for all transactions. I'll make sure nothing moves without your explicit approval. Thank you. I hope you're wrong about Ben, for both your sakes. So do I. But I'm not. By 5 o'clock, I'd secured every asset I could reach. Bank accounts, investment portfolios, company operations, property deeds. All of it locked behind walls that Ben couldn't climb and Vivian couldn't manipulate. But that was defense. Playing not to lose. I needed offense. Needed to go after them, not just protect myself. The emails were the key. Marilyn had printed them all, but I needed the originals. Digital copies with metadata intact, timestamps that proved premeditation, IP addresses that showed coordination between Ben, Vivian, Gerald, and the buyers in Chicago. Evidence that would hold up in court if it came to that. Evidence that would destroy them completely if I needed it to. Getting them would require access to Ben's computer. His home computer, specifically, the one in his home office where he worked late nights, where Vivian couldn't constantly look over his shoulder, where he felt safe enough to be careless. I knew the house. I'd helped them buy it 3 years ago, made the down payment as a wedding gift. $25,000 that I'd thought was an investment in my son's future. Stupid, in retrospect. But you don't expect your son to use your generosity as a weapon. You don't expect him to take your help and turn it into ammunition for the war he's planning to wage against you. The house sat in Riverside Estates, 15 minutes north of here. Gated community, security guards who took their job seriously, cameras at every intersection. Getting in would be tricky. Getting in unnoticed would require planning and help from people who knew what they were doing. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through contacts. Found the one I needed. Mike Patterson. We'd served together in Vietnam, stayed close through the decades, built lives and families and businesses while trying to forget rice paddies and helicopter rotors and the particular smell of fear that never quite leaves you no matter how many years pass. Mike had gone into private security after the war, parlayed his military experience into a successful business. Now he ran a firm that installed alarm systems for half the wealthy homes in the county, including, conveniently, Ben's house. Mike, it's Jack. I need a favor. We talked for 20 minutes. He didn't ask why, didn't judge, didn't lecture me about the law or ethics or what happens to old men who break into their children's houses, just listened and made suggestions and promised to have what I needed by tomorrow afternoon. That's what combat does. Creates bonds that don't break. Men who'll help you bury bodies without asking questions because they know you'd do the same. Because you've already done it. In rice paddies and jungle clearings and places you try not to remember at 3 in the morning when sleep won't come and the past feels closer than the present. Whatever you're dealing with, Mike said before hanging up, I hope you win. You're one of the good ones, Jack. If someone's coming after you, they deserve whatever they get. I ate dinner alone, leftover casserole from the freezer, something Marilyn had made months ago and labeled carefully. Her handwriting on the masking tape, Jack's favorite, heat at 350 for 30 minutes, add cheese in the last 10. Like she'd known I'd be here, eating alone, planning revenge in an empty house. Like she'd prepared for this even then, leaving me supplies for a war she knew was coming. The phone rang at 8. Ben. I let it go to voicemail, listened to his voice crack as he tried to explain himself. Dad, please. We need to talk about this. I don't know what you think happened, but you've got it wrong. We weren't celebrating you being gone. We were just having a nice Christmas. Can we meet? Just coffee? Please call me back. I miss you. The voice of my son. Still recognizable, still carrying echoes of the boy he'd been, but underneath, I could hear the calculation, the manipulation, the same tone he used with clients when he wanted something, the practiced sincerity that came from years of learning how to make people believe him. I deleted it without responding. At 9, Vivian called. Her message was different, sharper, more honest in its hostility. This is childish, Jack. You're not well. Anyone can see that. The locks, the accusations, shutting us out on Christmas. This isn't you. This is the grief talking, maybe early dementia. We're trying to help you. The doctor needs to see you. Call me back or I'm filing a wellness check with the police. Don't force our hand on this. Threats already. That was fast. I saved that one. Added it to Marilyn's folder, another piece of evidence showing their true colors. Tom would want to hear it. Fisher might be able to use it. Every mistake they made, every overreach, every moment they showed their hand, all of it was ammunition. By 10 o'clock, the house had gone quiet. Snow fell heavier now, covering the lawn, muffling sound, creating that particular silence that comes with winter storms. I sat in the dark living room, no lights except the glow of the Christmas tree Marilyn had loved. The ornaments caught the colored lights, glass angels and wooden stars, and the tiny rocking horse Ben had made in 3rd grade. I remembered that kid. 8 years old, tongue stuck out in concentration, painting carefully, determined to make something his mother would love. When he'd presented it to her on Christmas morning, wrapped in newspaper because he'd spent his allowance on the kit, she'd cried, hung it on the tree in the place of honor, told him it was the best present she'd ever received. Where had that boy gone? When had the love turned to greed? When had his father become an obstacle instead of a person? My phone buzzed. Text from Henry. Report coming tomorrow. You're not going to like it. I texted back. I already don't like it. Details just make it official. Then I turned off the phone, pulled a blanket over my shoulders, and tried to sleep in the chair where I'd sat with Marilyn 1,000 nights, planning tomorrows that would never come. Sleep didn't come easy. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ben as a child. Ben learning to ride a bike, me running beside him, holding the seat, letting go at just the right moment. Ben's first day of school, nervous and excited, gripping my hand tight as we walked through the doors. Ben graduating college, shaking my hand with tears in his eyes, saying, I couldn't have done it without you, Dad. Everything I am, I owe to you. When had that changed? When had I become an obstacle instead of a father? When had gratitude turned to resentment, love turned to greed, respect turned to contempt? Or had it always been there, lurking beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to emerge? Had I been blind, or had Ben changed? Or was this who he'd always been underneath, just hidden better when he still needed me? The questions kept me awake until dawn. Wednesday morning, I called an emergency board meeting. Harris Construction had 3 board members, me, Henry, and Patricia Morrison, Father Morrison's niece, corporate attorney, sharp as broken glass. I distributed packets at 9 a.m. Fisher's reports, the emails, the nursing home documentation, everything indexed and damning. Ben's been planning to have me declared incompetent, I said without preamble. He's been working with his wife and her father to seize company assets, liquidate Harris Construction, and personally profit from my incapacitation. Patricia flipped through pages, face darkening. This is conspiracy to commit fraud. I want him removed from succession planning. I want it documented that Benjamin Harris is unfit to lead this company, and I want it done legally through proper governance. Henry leaned back. You want us to fire your son? I want you to acknowledge what he's tried to do and act accordingly. Patricia read for 10 more minutes, then closed the folder. Based on this evidence, Ben has violated fiduciary duty, engaged in self-dealing, and demonstrated profound lack of judgment. As board members, we have an obligation to protect company interests. That means removing him from succession planning immediately. She drafted a resolution. We voted. 3 in favor. The resolution passed. By 10 a.m., Ben's future with Harris Construction had been erased. I called Rita. Ben's no longer in succession planning. Effective immediately, he has no authority to approve contracts, hire or fire staff, or access confidential financial information. Ben arrived at the office around 11. I intercepted him in the hallway. Ben, conference room. Now. His smile faltered. Dad, what's... Now. Patricia and Henry were already seated. Ben walked in looking confused and frightened. I closed the door, remained standing while he sat. The board met this morning. We've reviewed your conduct regarding estate planning and company succession. We've also reviewed evidence showing conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted theft of assets, and violation of fiduciary duty. Ben went pale. Dad, I can explain. Don't interrupt. I slid a folder across the table. This contains emails between you, Vivian, and Gerald Foster, discussing the sale of Harris Construction to Meridian Development Group. It contains documentation of an attempted intake at Shady Grove Assisted Living. It contains evidence of a scheme to have me declared incompetent and liquidate company assets for personal profit. He opened the folder with shaking hands. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. The board has voted to remove you from succession planning. You're no longer listed as my replacement. You have no authority to make executive decisions. Your role is now advisory only. We're also initiating a full audit of your activities. If we find anything irregular, you'll be terminated immediately, and we'll pursue criminal charges. Dad, please. I'm not done. You made me pick between my company and my family, so I picked the company, because at least it's honest. The meeting ended. Ben left, looking broken. At 3 p.m. he called. I sent it to voicemail. At 5 p.m., Vivian called. You're making a mistake, Jack. You're going to end up alone and full of resentment. Think carefully about what you're doing. I saved that one. Added it to the evidence file. Thursday morning, Gerald Foster called. Jack, we need to discuss your actions regarding Benjamin. No, we don't. I'm calling as his attorney. You've terminated him without cause and made serious accusations. If you continue, we'll respond legally. Gerald, I have documentation of conspiracy to commit fraud. I have emails showing you negotiating a side deal while advising my son. You really want to involve lawyers? Silence. Those emails are privileged. Not when they document criminal conspiracy. I hung up. Tom Anderson called 10 minutes later. Gerald's threatening emergency guardianship, claiming you're experiencing diminished capacity. Based on what? Your erratic behavior. Changing locks, removing Ben, making accusations. He'll argue you need intervention. Can he do that? He can file. Won't win, but he can file. We'll need medical evaluations, character witnesses, financial records. I called a press conference for Friday morning. Announced Harris Construction was restructuring under my continued leadership. The message was clear. I wasn't vulnerable. I was in control. Friday afternoon, Tom received Gerald's filing, emergency petition for guardianship. Tom laughed. He's citing the lock changes as evidence of incompetence. This won't survive first review. The following Tuesday, I called Ben. He answered immediately. Dad? We need to talk, in person. Come to the house tomorrow at noon. Is this? Tomorrow at noon, Ben. Don't be late. I hung up. Then I called Fisher. I need everything you have on Robert Drake. Employment, finances, relationship status, everything. You're going nuclear? I'm ending this. Tuesday arrived cold and clear. I set up the dining room like a war room. Documents arranged on the table, laptop queued to the video footage, everything ready. Ben arrived at noon exactly. He looked terrible, hadn't shaved, dark circles under his eyes, suit wrinkled. "Sit down," I said. He sat, looked at the documents on the table. "Dad, what is this?" "This is the end, Ben. The end of your marriage, the end of your career, the end of whatever relationship you thought we still had." I slid the first folder across. "Vivian's romantic history. 3 previous victims before you. Each relationship ended in threats or theft. She's a con artist. You're just her biggest score." Ben opened it slowly. "Read." His face went pale. "That's impossible. She wouldn't." "Watch." I opened the laptop. The video played. Vivian and Robert Drake, holding hands, kissing, leaving together. "This is from 3 weeks ago, but it's been going on for 6 months. Every Tuesday afternoon, while you've been at the office, she's been with him." Ben stared at the screen. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. "There's more. 4 more meetings over the past month, all documented. All proving your wife's been cheating on you while planning to steal from me." I slid another folder across. "Your prenuptial agreement, page 7, section 3, infidelity clause. If either party commits adultery, they forfeit all rights to marital assets. She drafted this to protect herself, but it works both ways. File for divorce today. Use this evidence. She gets nothing. The house stays yours. No alimony, no settlement, nothing." "I can't." "Yes, you can. Or you can stay married to a woman who's using you, sleeping with another man, and planning to discard you the moment she's extracted everything valuable." Ben stood suddenly, knocking his chair back. "You did this. You destroyed everything. My job, my marriage, my future. Because of what? Because we were concerned about you? Because we wanted to help?" I stood too, met his eyes. "You scheduled my intake at a nursing home. You drafted power of attorney paperwork without my knowledge. You conspired with your wife and her father to have me declared incompetent and steal my company. Don't you dare call that help." Vivian said. Vivian lied. About everything. About loving you. About helping me. About your future together. She used you the same way she used 3 men before you. The only difference is those men figured it out before they married her. Ben grabbed the folders, clutched them to his chest. Tears streamed down his face. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you tried to bury me while I was still alive. Because you chose greed over family. Because you need to understand what betrayal feels like." He stumbled toward the door, turned back. "I'm your son." "I know. That's what makes this hurt." Ben left. The door slammed. Through the window, I watched him collapse in his car, shoulders shaking. Fisher called an hour later. "Ben just showed up at Vivian's parents' house with a lawyer. He's filing for divorce, using everything we provided." "Good. Jack, it's done. You've taken everything from them. The company, the marriage, the money, the future. They're destroyed." "Not yet. One more thing. I want Gerald Foster disbarred." Wednesday morning, I filed a formal complaint with the State Bar Association. Attached were emails showing Gerald's conflict of interest, his negotiations with Meridian while advising Ben, his participation in conspiracy to commit fraud. Tom handled the filing. "This is career-ending, Jack. Gerald's practiced law for 30 years. This will destroy him. He tried to destroy me first." The bar complaint became public within hours. By afternoon, 3 of Gerald's major clients had requested their files be transferred. By evening, his law partners issued a statement distancing themselves. Vivian called that night. No threatening message this time. Just tears. "Please, Jack, please stop. We're sorry. We made mistakes. But you're destroying lives. My father, Ben, our future. Please." I saved the message but didn't respond. Thursday brought more fallout. Ben filed for divorce, citing infidelity. Vivian contested it, claiming the evidence was fabricated. But Fisher's documentation was thorough. Her lawyer advised her to settle. Friday, the guardianship hearing. Tom and I arrived at the courthouse with 3 doctors' evaluations, financial records, and character statements from 20 business associates. The judge reviewed everything for 10 minutes. Mr. Foster, I see no evidence of cognitive decline. Mr. Harris appears fully competent and in control of his affairs. Petition denied. Outside the courtroom, Gerald approached me. He looked 20 years older. You've won, Jack. You've taken everything. My career, my reputation, my daughter's marriage. Are you satisfied? Not yet. What more do you want? I want you to understand what you tried to do. You planned to lock me away and steal my life. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences? It was Vivian's idea. She pushed Ben. You just helped. You just advised. You just drafted the documents and found the buyers and scheduled the appointments. Don't pretend you were innocent. Gerald's shoulders sagged. What happens now? Now you live with what you've done. Lose your license, lose your practice, lose the respect you spent 30 years building. And every time you look in the mirror, you'll remember why. He walked away without responding. The following week brought rapid change. Ben moved out of his house. Vivian fought the divorce, but her lawyer kept pushing settlement. Gerald's law firm officially terminated him pending Bar Association decision. Harris Construction announced new succession plans. I'd hired Rachel Morrison as chief operating officer. She'd run the company when I was ready to step back. Not Ben. Never Ben. Henry stopped by Thursday evening. It's done, Jack. You've won. They're all destroyed. Company's secure, assets protected, reputation intact. You can rest now. Can I? Isn't this what you wanted? I looked around the empty house. I wanted justice. I got revenge. I'm not sure those are the same thing. Are you sorry? No, but I'm not happy either. That night, I stood in Ben's empty bedroom. Walls bare, shelves empty. No trace of the boy who'd once lived here. I'd erased him as thoroughly as he'd planned to erase me. I walked back downstairs, stopped at the Christmas tree. Marilyn's ornaments still glowing, Ben's rocking horse catching light. I reached up, took it down, held it in my hands. The paint was faded, but I could still see the brushstrokes, still see the 8-year-old boy's careful work. That boy was gone. Maybe not literally, but lost beneath layers of greed and weakness so deep he'd never come back. I put the rocking horse in a box, closed the lid, put it in the basement with everything else I couldn't throw away, but couldn't look at anymore. Then I turned off the lights and sat in the dark. Winner, alone, victorious. My phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. Dad, I know you don't want to hear from me. I understand why. But I need you to know I'm sorry. For everything. I was wrong, weak, stupid. I don't expect forgiveness. Just wanted you to know I understand what I did. I'm sorry. Ben. I stared at the screen, finger hovering over delete, then over reply. What would I say? I forgive you? I didn't. It's okay? It wasn't. Come home? There was no home to come back to. I typed, I know. Deleted it. Typed, too late. Deleted it. Finally just, okay. Sent before I could second-guess myself. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Ben, can we talk? Someday? Not now. I know you're not ready. But someday? I should have said no. Should have ended it completely. Burned that final bridge and moved on with my empty victory. Instead, I typed, maybe. It wasn't forgiveness. Wasn't reconciliation. Just the smallest crack in the wall I'd built. Maybe that was enough. Maybe it wasn't. Time would tell. But for the first time in months, I felt something other than rage. Not peace, not happiness, but possibility. The smallest hint that victory didn't have to mean dying alone in an empty house with nothing but money and memories. I stood up, turned off the office lights, drove home through winter darkness. The house was still empty, still echoing with silence, still filled with ghosts. But maybe, just maybe, it didn't have to stay that way forever. I pulled out my phone, Looked at Ben's message again. That single word. Someday? Tomorrow, I'd probably regret responding. Probably rebuild the walls and return to cold victory. But tonight, in the darkness, that tiny word glowed with possibility. Someday, not today, not next week, but someday. It was enough. I climbed the stairs, past Ben's empty bedroom, didn't look inside, went to my room instead. Marilyn's picture on the nightstand, 40 years of marriage frozen in silver frame. I won, I told her. Destroyed them completely. Took everything, like you warned me to. Her frozen smile didn't respond. But Henry says you told him to make sure I didn't destroy myself too. Did you? Did you know this would happen? Silence. Just the house settling, the heating system clicking on. Normal sounds of normal life. I don't know if I can forgive him, I said. Don't know if I should, but maybe I don't have to destroy him forever. Maybe there's something between total war and total surrender. I climbed into bed, turned off the light, lay in darkness thinking about sons and fathers and the price of victory. Somewhere across town, Ben was probably doing the same, lying in a small apartment, alone, destroyed, wondering if his father would ever speak to him again. I'd made him wonder, made him suffer, made him understand what he'd tried to do. Mission accomplished.